It's your Friday main event, the A show, Staffing Mania here for yet another Friday to kick this off. It's a big week, Richard. How's your week been? I mean, this is Shark Week. This is a really big week for you.
It's been amazing. I've been at so many coffee shops. I got to put all this stuff out there. I've had more Shark Bite coffee shops. I've been to Sonic to have their shark drink. It's been crazy.
You've been
A
getting
lot of
shark
sugar.
stuff.
Lot of sugar this week, so it's all good.
Well, go ahead.
Actually, my workouts are better now with that sugar. Just to let you know, it's like because I don't eat sugar. I don't have sugar in my house at all. I don't even have no salt in here either.
Wow, that's impressive. I have a little bit of sugar here that I'm eyeing in my corner, but I try to stay away from it too. But sugar, so you said you had a lot of sugar this week, which means you're probably gonna hit the gym a little bit more going forward. Yeah.
I don't know. I think it helps me out. We'll see. Tonight's will be a couple of land shark beers. You know how my Friday is. The lake and land sharks. That's what I do on Fridays in the summertime here.
Lakes. I love it. Lakes and land sharks. One of these days I'm going to show up.
You will have to come here.
Partake with you.
It's the gym in West Virginia. Cheat Lake. Gotta love it.
Fantastic. All right. So it's been a big week. There's been a lot of shark related activities happening because it is Shark Week. But we're here to talk about something a little bit different. But before we get into that, Richard, you shared something with me right before we jumped on because I recently finished reading Arnold Schwarzenegger's book Be Useful, which was such a great book, and I would say it's even better listening to the audiobook than reading it because he's such a great storyteller. And, it's like you're already narrating. If you're reading it, you're already narrating in an Arnold voice. So you definitely want to hear it from Arnold's voice directly. So tell me more. Tell me what you share with everybody.
I have to tell you, Amy, I'm here to pump you up. Thank you so much for that. Come on, Arnold. But I met Arnold twice at the Arnold Classic. It's the first week in March in Columbus every year. I've been going for like 28 years. And when I used to be a competitor bodybuilding, I got to meet him twice at the Metrics booth. Dude, awesome dude back in the day. Yeah, he's great. And actually, he was governor for some of that time, so it was crazy.
He was the governor.
Oh yeah, hit to pump you up. But you know what? That book, it's so inspiring, Amy. I got to tell you straight up. Just not because I work out all the time and I've been doing it for 30 years, but that dedication, I don't think people know what goes into the body. And I always say body and business, if you build your body, your business will come on that back end because the determination, every day you're watching your calories, your reps, what we're going to talk about today with metrics. I mean, that is all what the body is about. And you sculpture this. This body's like something that's like a Bob Ross. You build this. Like, we're not personal trainers. We're body artists, we call it. Like, I can look at somebody and say, this is how I can, form you in a year. And it's just, I mean, what Arnold went through. If you've seen the workouts he did in the 70s and what he's done in his lifetime, I mean, he'd come over here from another country. People didn't even understand what he was saying, and then he was this biggest bodybuilder on the planet. And then he became this movie star. And then the governor. I mean, the guy doesn't quit, And now he's got these goats and that farm and all that stuff in Cali. I know everything about him. Yeah. Maybe go get his phone number and get him on our show. Wouldn't that be great?
That would be excellent.
That would be awesome. I can't guarantee it.
That might be a little while down the way. The more likes and comments we get in our Staffing Mania channel, maybe he'll take notice.
Oh, but I got to tell you real quick, like he is so humble when you meet him in person. Like it's, and then he was like, oh, and I wasn't a shark, Ben. He's like, Rick, arms, nice vascularity. That's how he said. Like, so if somebody says that to you, you're like, holy shit! Like this is before cell phones. It was like 2005, So I didn't even have a BlackBerry or nothing, and so it was like just. I think I have a picture somewhere after the final when them instant cameras, remember them? I think that's what I had. But I will say one thing before we jump into it that book is amazing. I've read some of it myself. And it is the facts. Like he is one of them that, I always say, gym, walk, if you keep yourself healthy, I say this over and over again. It's not about flaunting yourself. It's about love yourself and you can love everybody else. Seriously. But that pump, that body pump, I got to tell you, it's the most amazing world because when you're a bodybuilder, you have other people helping you, but it's yourself. Everything you do is pretty much yourself. So this is one sport where it's like me, myself, and I on the stage. Kind of scary.
Yeah. And the book is not it's not a book about bodybuilding. It's
No.
about the lessons that he has learned throughout his life, starting from when he was very young, even before he got into any type of bodybuilding, and the work and the dedication that he put into it, and the people. That was the big thing that stood out to me. The people who helped him along every step of the way. And I think that that was so important, that even back then there was a lot of doubt, and he said he would work out, I think, like 5 or 6 hours a day, just
Hmm.
to try to continue to get more refined, more cut. And he would constantly seek ways to make it better, just refine it a little bit more so he could have a little bit more definition, a little bit, whatever it was. But again, not a bodybuilding book, but really about your mindset and how you approach growth in your life, and how ultimately at the end of the day you can be a useful person in society. I found out about the book. I had no interest in actually reading, and I was like, "Oh, it's, okay." But
It's a meathead book.
okay, I was like, "Oh, it's Arnold. Okay. What am I going to learn about?" But I'm Painted Porch is based on Stoicism, and so I'm a big follower of Stoic philosophy and Stoic authors, and Ryan Holiday, who's one of the most probably popular right now and prolific Stoic authors and speakers and proponents today. He rated it as one of his top 10 books of all time. And this dude reads like 10 books a month. So I'm like, if he rated this as one of the top 10 books of all time, I definitely want to give this a read, because he does not recommend a whack book. So I thought,
No,
let me try it out
it's
and see.
it's
Yeah.
amazing. And last thing I wrap up on this is like the bodybuilding part, how it's the mind over matter. It took me 8 years to get up on the stage, Amy. 8 years. Friday nights, people's at the bar at 19, 20 years. Guess what I'm at? In the gym till 11 o'clock at night. They didn't know how many hours I put in. And you look in the mirror and it's that determination and then you got the doubters. You got the people like, oh, you're too small. You can't grow. And then 2 years later, you grow 20 pounds of muscle. It's like that determination, which we put in everything we do in life is about that. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, it don't have to be bodybuilding, but bodybuilding was a foundation for me, just like Arnold, to be honest with you, to get us to the next level, because we knew that when people said no, we said yes.
Yeah. And I think that bodybuilding, we were talking about this right before we hopped on, but bodybuilding really is a great comparative to what it is that we're here to talk about today, which is all about growth and success in staffing. Arnold wasn't Mr. Universe after going to the gym once. And what he was measured on was not how many reps he did, but what the outcome of those reps yielded. And those reps take time. That outcome takes time. And I think that as we were talking, that's a perfect analogy when we talk about the meaning of the metrics that you are looking at in staffing, and what it is you're really measuring, and maybe where some of your metrics are leading you astray, and you're not actually hitting your Mr. Universe, Mr. Olympia, or Mr. Mrs. Olympia level of
Yeah.
excellence and achievement that you could, had you either as a leader of a staffing organization, as an individual contributor, the metrics that you are measuring and how you are then determining your level of success.
I love how you said that. You know what? And we're going to talk about that dreaded word KPI. I mean, it's out there all the time. I mean, you judge. I see so many people, recruiters, that actually they fall off and leave staffing because
Yeah.
somebody said the KPI, you couldn't hit this for 6 months. You couldn't hit this. And it's like, okay, did you work around them? Are you like a personal trainer? I mean, we should be recruiter trainers, right? We're trainers for recruiters. Let's work the same way as a personal trainer. Develop that body, develop that recruiting skills.
Yeah.
You want me to throw this up, Amy? You ready to talk about this?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's talk about it. So
All
this
right.
is, yeah. So we're probably all familiar with these KPIs. This is actually courtesy of skillfill.ai. Just want to make sure we source it.
Shout
But
out.
these are the ones we typically see. Along with this, I would also throw in a few more. I would say, I think, because we don't have time on here. Well, time of vacancy, but I would say time to fill, head count. Those are those different measures that in my mind are missing the mark. I think so often, first and foremost, how we sparked this whole conversation that we wanted to have today was we were talking about the commoditization of staffing in a lot of ways. Right now, for many organizations in several different verticals, staffing demand has gone down. And so now you're all competing for the same pool of opportunities. And when you compete for the same pool, sometimes you start to look at these jobs, these clients, and these candidates as widgets in a machine,
Yep.
as commodities. And when you start looking at them as heads to count or jobs to fill,
Oh,
that creates a significant disconnect. And you're all competing in a race to the bottom, in my opinion.
that word head count, I hate that freaking word. Don't you? What's your head count?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, really,
Yeah.
so you're labeling every person as a head. I know that's that word, head count, but
Yeah.
I don't like that word at all. Put
Yeah.
candidate count or something like that. CNC, come on. Let's make it fun.
Or people working, people
Yeah.
at work, people in jobs, people who now are able to buy groceries and support their family and pay their bills and maybe take a vacation. It's putting people to work. And I know that every staffing agency would be very quick to say, well, that is what we do. That is what we believe. That's why we're here. I would say your language and your metrics say differently.
100%. And you know what? Even in the sales part, the KPI for sales, Amy, it's so bad. Every time I see it's like 100 taps a week. Coaches are saying this too, Amy. I gotta say out there, they're like, yeah, 300 touches a week. Dude, you're throwing shit at the wall. That doesn't work, my friends. 25 contacts. Learn about the company. These people just drop off business cards. They have no clue who their HR person is. They don't even know what they do. It could be a technology company and they do light industrial. I think you got to educate yourself, but here's what it comes down. They're not proactive. They're in that panic zone now. They need their numbers. They spend a lot on tech stack or something else. They might have to let recruiters go. They're in a panic zone. So guess what they do? Just throw everything and hoping something sticks.
Yeah. And I think to some extent, that's when you start to double down on these, I'm going to just say these meaningless measures of success. I can hear people that would argue and say, okay, but some of these other factors like quality of relationship or whatever it might be, that those are more qualitative. How do you measure that? How do you measure the quality of a relationship? How do you measure, whether or not someone is interested in working for you or wants to come back? And I would argue the qualitative measure is actually you're measuring less on the activity. The activities are what people typically measure. Number of calls, number of touches, number of follow-ups, number of submittals, number of jobs, number of interviews, right? All of those things are actually things that are 100% out of your control. As a Stoic principle, the dichotomy of control, the only thing you have control of is how you behave and how you treat other people. Everything else is outside of your sphere. And you can influence, but you cannot control the outcome. And when you start placing external outcomes on individuals, you are setting them up for success, but are setting them up for failure. And also, along with that, the qualitative measure is really more about the outcome, not the activity. The activities should be what lead to the outcome. But if you're measuring the activity for activity's sake, you are going to walk away and go, well, why are we still not hitting our numbers? Why are we still not moving the needle? Why are we still not filling these jobs? It's because all you're doing is trying to measure the activity, the little hamster on the wheel, like, just like running around, not the outcome itself. The outcome is what matters.
I love how you said that. You know what? And I seen this about a couple of weeks ago. I was in this staffing firm. I'm not going to mention their name. And it was all about like only on the phone for 5 minutes. Stay off. If you're on for like 12 minutes, that's too long. We have to call another person. I don't know about you, Amy, but like when I first started staffing, they're like, Shark, you talk for like a half hour with somebody, an hour. But guess what? I usually get them hired and they refer me to 4 other people. That's that relationship right there. So it doesn't matter how long you're on the phone. I think the longer you're on, the more they're going to trust you and they're going to build a rapport with you. This 5 minutes in and out so we can get all these phone calls in. And you probably see this too, Amy. That's where the number comes in all the time. It's like, I need you to make 50 phone calls. So that means about 3 minutes per call. It doesn't exist.
Yeah. And whenever I go into organizations and we do like current state and future state process analysis, that's one of the first things I ask because I want to know what their metrics are. But with that, it's a conversation. It's why. This is why it's good I'm not a recruiter anymore because I would probably be the worst recruiter ever because I would be the most difficult 5-year-old child when it comes to meeting metrics.
Oh.
I would challenge it constantly. You have to make X number of calls. I had a sales job once, many, many years ago, way before I got into staffing. It was back when I was very young.
What did you sell? By the way, where'd you work at? You got to give a plug out. Where is that?
I worked for a collection agency.
Ooh.
And my job was a sales job. It was to try to sell our collection services to a bunch of people in the state of Florida. And literally my boss, he was fine, but he was not the best leader. He brought me in, he gave me a phone book and he went, here, start making phone calls.
Oh my God.
For someone like me, that was the worst job to give me because I had to hit certain call numbers. So what did I do? I just called to whatever, just so I could tick a box. I literally did. I was like, yep, here's all the people I called today. Here's all the packets I sent out. But those people probably had no intention of using our services, but I had to hit a number. So guess what? I hit the number. But I didn't actually do well at selling.
No. Okay, so I'm going to take it another level. And I did this in the beginning. I'm going to tell you, they didn't like me either because they're like, dude, Shark, you got to get on the phone. You got to do this. And they're like, no, I do it my way. I'm still going to get the starts and everything. But you'll love this. Most of these recruiters now, if they're filled pressure like this, they type bogus notes in. Contacted Joe, contacted Julie. So when they leave, you have all these bogus notes, bad phone numbers, everything. Your data is so screwed up, my friends, because you're putting pressure on that KPI. It happens all the time. They're like, that recruiter said they have like 500 candidates in the funnel in 3 years. Meanwhile, 400 of them are bogus,
Yeah. So Richard, can you pull up the KPIs again, just to look at those?
Yeah.
Just to talk about the ones that are meaningful to measure, or really more so, I think there's a delta behind some of these.
The retention one for sure.
So, yeah. Well, you know what? And I want to take a minute to talk about that. I am continually surprised when I meet with clients, and a lot of them are in healthcare staffing. Again, we talk about their processes. We talk about their current state and future state. In their current state process, I ask them regularly, what's your retention, renewal, your extension, not process, but how are you measuring it? How are you measuring that versus anything else? And I will tell you, almost all of them, save maybe 5%, actually measure how many retention, how many renewals or extensions they have. Otherwise, they're just treating it as part of that generic pool of heads that they're counting. And it amazes me that it is not a specific metric. I'm like, that's the metric you want to measure. If you want to measure satisfaction and quality and all the other things that we really want for our candidates and for our organization, that is the metric.
The Royal Rumble is retention. The Royal Rumble is retention, Amy. That's it. Bottom line. It's all about the R. Yeah, let's get it there. I mean, seriously, I see it all the time too, dear. All the time. You guys about retention? They did all that work to get that person hired. And guess what? Falls off. And they're like, oh, okay, it's all new. Oh, and Amy disappeared. Oh, there she comes back. Look out. I thought you were going back to the dressing room to get your outfit on and get ready for the match. Oh, but you hit that right on the head so many times. Every time I go in somewhere, the retention, they have no clue. All they care about is these are all the starts we had this week, and then have a good weekend. Like, what? What fell off? Oh, can you hear me?
Go. Here we go. Can you hear me?
Oh, you're live now. You're back on. Were you in the locker room for a while? I didn't know what happened there, but
no, I got so passionate about retention that I unplugged my microphone from.
Woo! Yeah, that's what it's about here. You never know what's going to happen when it's live. Hell yeah.
I just kicked the cord and it completely separated. So yes, I was very hot on retention.
Maybe the KPI gods didn't want us to say retentions. They just muted us.
I know.
Oh. What's going on, Amy? Your microphone's giving out. Can you hear me?
All right, I'm back. I'm just going to switch to something else. So apparently I was a little too abusive with my microphone.
The retention thing, but we both understand that. That is going to be like the one or two in the beginning that we have to really enforce. So if anybody's out there listening to this, your team retention is so important.
And I think it's the quality. We talk more and more. I think the last few years of conferences, the next few years of conferences, the topics are all about technology and where technology is going to come into the staffing industry and what parts of any given job are going to be possibly automated or used through AI. And all the talk more and more and more is like, it's all about relationships. It's all about relationships. That's what we care about. That's what the recruiter is going to be going forward. And I will say bullshit until you change your metrics. That's the only time it's going to actually happen. If you change your metrics. And again, yes, the metrics themselves may feel a little qualitative, but the outcome is what you measure. Don't measure the activity, because the activity, just like you said, just like we both admitted, can be fudged and fudged very easily.
It's fudged all the time. I'm going to tell all these staffing owners out there, if you look at your raw data, what you have left, it's probably about 20% of what you think you have. That's it, man. Yeah. The rest is all dead material, dead candidates, dead everything. When you say I hate when they say, I have 400,000 people in a database. When was the last time you checked it? 10 years ago? Yeah. About 4,000 live. I mean, that is stuff too that we could talk about down the road too. I mean, it's about being active with everything, Amy, Yeah.
So I would challenge you, take a look at your metrics that you have today and ask yourself why. Not why do we have it, but why do we measure it? What is it that we are actually trying to measure with this metrics? What is the presumption that this metrics will then yield? And could there be other ways that this outcome, the outcome that this metrics is meant to indicate, are there other ways that this can be achieved without using this specific KPI as our measure? I would just challenge you to take a minute. And some of them you might still want to stick with, and okay, fair. You know what? I'm not trying to throw you in we're not trying to throw you in the deep end right now. We're not handing you a 100-pound deadlift to start. We're saying start with like 5 pounds each in your hand. Just start with a little lift.
Baby steps here, guys. We don't have to touch the creatine yet. That's next year, okay?
Yeah. Yeah, but just take a minute and really reflect and think about what is it that this metrics is trying to measure? What is ultimately the outcome or the signal that this metrics is meant to highlight? And can there be a different way that we can get there? Richard, you have a great KPI that I think that we should start adopting. Tell us a little bit about that one.
The recruiter mass index. Well, I got this from instead of the BMI, body mass index, it's the recruiter mass index. It's the same way. You know what? Every recruiter wants to be a lean, mean machine, right? And jacked. That will get you candidates. So if you do it the same process, the same way as a BMI, measure your body fat and then trim it down to your height. That's all your activity, but make it, you don't want all the activity. It's going to be what you're going to have the output is. So here's what I came up with. You ready for this? So one of the big things I like is the value of your new hires, the value of that. I mean, what are we ever talk about that anymore? Like we just put a body out there.
You mean the profit? You mean the profit?
Yeah, the profit, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and like you already said, the time to hire. I think that's so important with everything. I mean, if you go through the drive-through at Wendy's or any of them, they have that on it. When I worked at Taco Bell, how quick you can get it out there, Yep, you have like 2 minutes to get it out there. Time to hire too. Here's where I think our recruiters are getting a little bit mixed up with the KPI is they're scared to tell the manager that person fell off or that person didn't respond to their phone call or ghosted them or something like that. But I think that's where we need to speed this up there and be transparent about the time to hire.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be a demerit. It should be a coaching opportunity but again, we have to recognize what is within the recruiter's control. And so long as the recruiter is doing the right things, being a good advocate, an agent, leaning into that high touch that everybody talks about, and they are being a good ally to these individuals, whether it's the recruiter and the candidate relationship or the sales and the client relationship. As long as they are cultivating these strong relationships, the outcomes will happen over time. It just might take longer than what you might otherwise be willing to give them. I've been to some organizations where they're like, we give them a couple weeks and it's sink or swim. And if they're not hitting their numbers, then we kick them out. And I'm like, okay. Okay, you're not really investing in them in any way. You're just using them as the mechanism to fuel your business. But it goes back to what we talked about right at the beginning in Arnold. Arnold was not Mr. Universe after the first time he lifted weights. No. The reps are not what matter. It's the outcome of the reps that ultimately can make you a winner in your work, your life, or anywhere in between, and especially in this world of trying to stand out, be different, be heard, be seen, be in demand versus being a commodity or a nuisance that just keeps making phone calls.
I got to tell you this, Amy, don't you think that the KPIs or whatever you want to call them now, I like the RMI better because I think it's this KPI word is like going to the principal's office. Everybody hates KPIs. Yeah. When I first had them, I mean, I was awful with them because like, well, you got to do this. I'm like, and this doesn't work. You had 10 recruiters before me and they all fell off. This doesn't work. And then you get on that performance plan, which I was never on, by the way, but you get a recruiter on that, they get so frustrated. It's like a detention slip. I hate that performance plan. They give it to you, they tell you what you need to do, and they walk away. Mm-hmm. That's not a leader. That's a manager, and it's not going to ever develop anything. You're going to lose that recruiter, all that money you spent. And this is where it comes down to simple things that we're talking about today.
Yeah. Really think about what the metrics is, why it exists, why it's important, but what is it ultimately that metric is meant to inform? Are there different ways that it can be achieved? But also ask yourself, how could this be used in the opposite? How could it be used? I'm not going to say for bad, but how could it be manipulated to create the results? Satisfaction cannot be manipulated. Retention to a certain extent cannot be manipulated. If they don't want to be here, they're not going to be here. But you can certainly fudge a lot of these other numbers. I just challenge you to think about these a slightly different way. Time to hire. Not every staffing firm measures it, which I'm surprised at, but the ones that do they're not really then looking at it and going, where in this process are we seeing some, extended periods, and maybe what might that be? Instead, it just becomes, you need to submit people quicker, or you need to get them interviewed quicker. It's like, there's more, there's meaning underneath that you have to be willing to take the time to unpack. It's not more. It's not a numbers game. Actually, I was just talking to someone about this recently, how staffing to a certain extent has been viewed as a numbers game. It's the more we throw over, it's like it's volume. The more we throw over, the higher our percentage or possibility of closings and fill is. And I would say absolutely not. I think it's the exact opposite. It is not a numbers game. It is a quality game. If you create the type of relationships with your candidates and your talent, the relationship, you talk about this so much, Richard, the relationships with your clients, you're going to hit much higher fill percentages than had you just shoved a bunch of shit over the wall.
100%. You mean it goes into sales or whatever? I tell people this all the time. I mean, not to flat it, but I always say 301 people I put to work in 18 months with 2.5 recruiters. And guess what? We didn't have any technology besides an ATS system. And, and that's it. And Indeed and some other stuff. But guess what it was? I told them relationships the first thing. They got referral after referral. We didn't even pay them any money. So this is where it comes down to. I think we always talk about relationships, and we talk about this all the time on our show. But at the end of the day, I don't think they talk it, but are they really engaging in this? You have to be in your community. You have to be in your community. I mean, you have to be there. Like, I'll be there tonight, fist pumping, jumping, and I'll probably add 5 people to my LinkedIn just tonight. That's part of that relationship. And that ties in with this KPI and everything like that, that these recruiters can do stuff when they're not even working because it's a lifestyle. We have to teach them that this is a lifestyle, but you can have fun with it and have time off too, Right.
But if all you're measuring them on, if their only measures of success are number of calls, number of submittals,
Nope.
number of interviews, they're going to view it as a job, not as a career or a calling.
Well, you know what? Did
And
you
you're
ever
gonna
have a-
get what you get. You know what you
Here's a-
expect, you're gonna get.
Here's one here I got to tell you. About a couple of years ago, so this one kid, they started him in and they want to make 100 phone calls a day. Guess what? He'd call for like 5 seconds, hang up the phone, click, click, because the meter would be on there. It's they made 87 calls and they would give him like a gift card. Meanwhile, nobody even picked up the freaking phone. I'm like, are you effing kidding me? And he go, well, he's trying. Like, dude, I said, why don't you listen in next week? They did. And like, you're damn right. I'm like, dude, you ain't going to make 87 calls in like 2.5 hours. Come on, man. Like, and nobody's answering.
Yeah.
And you know what he said? Nobody's answering their phone because they must be like sleeping or all the excuses we don't want to hear about. There ain't no excuses in this business. No,
Right.
This is actually an easy job. All you do is just open your mouth and apply yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and recognize that to truly achieve the outcomes that your current surface metrics are allegedly measuring, to truly achieve those outcomes, it takes time, attention, intention, and an application and dedication of building these relationships. These relationships are not, they're not, they're not done in one phone call. And I think if we can recognize that this is a long game, not a short game. Yes, there's short-term needs that have to be filled, but those can be filled through long-term relationships. And occasionally some short-term ones. You're just going to find some people that come in and you can just boom, put them to work. But recognize that over time, what is going to help your organization remain at the top and continue to thrive and not be chasing a race to the bottom of just heads and jobs, it's going to take a little bit more time for nurturing than maybe you're otherwise looking at, and find ways to, and we can talk more about this separately, but find ways to measure the quality along with the quantity.
You got it. You know, don't chase the candidate or the client. Let them chase you. If you think that way, I got to say something else. I mean, all this we're talking about with the candidates and the clients is internal too. The internal team needs to be on the same page too. And I see a lot disconnect. You know, they need to engage with each other too and know what's going on, because all this stuff that we're talking about, metrics, if not everybody's not on the same page, this is not going to work. If you got one person doing whatever they want to do this. So I come down to this. I think the KPIs or whatever you want to call it, there should be a basis on each person. Each person has a skill. Like you talk about your working genius. Here we go. I'm going to tie this in a little bit and give you a plug out there. This is where everybody has a skill, my friends. So the KPI should be catered to each person a different way. I'm going to tell you, I mean, it takes some time, but this standard, just like a SAT test, doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Because each person is doing the work a little bit differently. And if you truly want them to be, as one staffing firm I worked with recently, if you truly want your recruiters and your salespeople to be the CEO of their desk, let them be the CEO of their desk. Let them run their desk. If you let them run their desk, over time, with coaching, with guidance, and by measuring the quality of the work that they're doing, the outcomes will inevitably follow. But if you are focusing on tasks, you're going to get task level outcomes.
And I think that we have to follow up each week. I know when they do KPIs, when do they check every month? Is that what it is? I mean,
but also remember, that's what's already happened. That's not what's going to happen, right? No. It's all in the past. It's all what has happened already.
So then they go back on the past and scold you for the future and say, you're a bad boy or bad girl. I mean, that's, you know, and I love how we have this topic here, because this is not, like I said, we're not out there to change things, but we're here to disrupt it, because we see where these little tweaks, if you can do some of this stuff, you probably will grow a lot more and be happier and have a work-life balance.
Yeah. So if you truly want to be high touch, challenge your metrics that you're measuring today, and challenge your assumptions about the meaning behind those metrics and the outcomes that you're truly trying to receive. And maybe along with your recruiters or with your salespeople, brainstorm different ways that you can make those outcomes happen or influence those outcomes to happen. instead of just one single path to supposed success.
I love how you said it. And you know what? Let your recruiters talk to you about what they want in their KPIs as a group. Get the group together and say, okay, we're going to start do the RMI, Recruiter Mass Index. I'm telling you, when I did this before, the recruiters love this. That KPI word, let's get rid of that. Let's try something different, and let's all grow muscles together. But I really think when you have the recruiters tell you, hey, this is my strong point, my weak point. Like I said, we're going back to Working Genius. This is where this part comes in with you, Amy, where we can develop this program and this KPI, if you want to call it that, into like a mean machine where everybody is succeeding on this. There's nobody going on a program where they can, maybe an exit program or something like that. Everybody's going to win. And that's what we have to have, because what we see right now, it's not working. Everybody this is your KPI. They usually send them to you in an email. You pull it up and they're like, oh, this is what you did this month. And then you compare them with each other and you're like, oh God, am I going to get like a warning here? Am I going to get fired?
Am I going to get called to the principal's office?
I hear this all the time. And it's like, come on, let's be transparent. Do it every week and praise your recruiters. I'm going to say, if you're out there and you're a manager or leader, praise your peeps every day. I praise them every day. Email, phone call, in-person fist pumps. I mean, they'll work harder for you. Yeah.
And maybe actually have a metric and a measure of success around renewals and retention. That's the one that should actually be the high. That's the one that ideally should be the highest, not the lowest. It's more like a throwaway. Put more emphasis on satisfaction and retention and relationships, and the rest will just
renewals and retention. The same initials as Richard Rosner. It's simple as that. That's all you have to remember. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, Amy, this is something we could really deep dive in down the road too. Yeah. I think maybe we could have like a round table on this. If anybody's listening and you guys want to have a round table on this, I think we all could put our heads together and make some kind of badass, index for everybody and share it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So if you're interested, let us know, because I think that this is something we could definitely shape together and try something new and different and see what the results will be, because ultimately that's what people are looking for, is the relationship, the connection. You want them to stick around. You want them to be a part of your organization, and you want to continue to put people to work in meaningful and measurable ways.
And I'm going to say it like this: we're here to pump you up. That's what it's all about.
Well, Richard, thank you. Thank you all for watching. Please share your comments. We always look forward to it. Sometimes we get heated and go on rants, but we appreciate you joining us and listening. And also, if you have any metrics that you're measuring that maybe are a little bit different, that aren't the usual boilerplate ones, or what meaning you're placing behind those metrics, please share them with us in the comments, because I think collectively we can help everyone be more intentional and more successful and feel more successful in what they're doing beyond ticking a box and meeting a KPI.
It's all about the staffing smile. Let's all smile. Hey, everybody have a safe week. Amy, take care. I'll see you next weekend.
Sounds good.
All right.